Hi, I'm Keely Malone, and I'm going to be talking about claustrophobia. So, what is claustrophobia? Claustrophobia is an anxiety disorder where you have extreme fear of confined places and spaces. And according to U.S. News Health, 9% of the U.S. population has a specific phobia, and claustrophobia happens to be the most common. So, the first article, the popular press article, How to Cope with Claustrophobia by Anna Miller, focused more on the daily things a person with claustrophobia would go through on a normal basis, along with the multiple solutions and treatments to handle their fear better. She talks about how people with claustrophobia fear things such as shopping, dining out, and even running errands. And she also says that some people don't seek treatments, and just to cope with claustrophobia, they just avoid the uncomfortable situations. However, if they were to seek treatment, they would go to therapy and do the virtual reality glasses. Article number 2, the peer review, which was called Influence on Perceptual Cues and Conceptual Information on Claustrophobic Fear by Shaban, Peppercorn, Alpers, Pauli, and Malberger. And this article talks about how they conducted an experiment and they explain the results of a study dealing with claustrophobia and how the claustrophobic volunteers that they had responded to the different cues and information. So they had 48 different volunteers that suffered from claustrophobia, and they were experimented on using those virtual reality glasses to test whether or not perceptual cues or conceptual information is more effective to trigger the fear. So they were seated in a box like that, and they were wearing the virtual reality glasses and told whether or not the doors on the box were actually open or closed, along with being able to see in the virtual reality glasses if they were open or closed. So for example, if they had a closed box, the box was actually closed, and on the virtual reality glasses it was open. They weren't affected by the claustrophobia. But they concluded that the claustrophobia patients, the perceptual cues affected more of their claustrophobia than the conceptual information. To compare the articles, they both go into depth about the basics of claustrophobia and what it is in the effects of claustrophobia, along with the norms of claustrophobia and what can trigger the fear. And they both also go into depth about the virtual reality glasses and how they can help with fixing your claustrophobia. To contrast, the first article, How to Cope with Claustrophobia by Anna Miller, talks more about the ways to deal with claustrophobia and what it's like living with it, and it's written for individuals trying to handle their fear, while the second article on the influence of cues and on perceptual cues and conceptual information focused more on an experiment and the results of claustrophobia and how it's triggered. And for my final statement, the popular press article does not represent a scholarly article. However, it correctly illustrated the anxiety disorder, claustrophobia, and concentrated on how to deal with claustrophobia. And those are my references.